Greetings, family. This is Dia Nunez with the H2O Network, sitting with my elder, Oba Ernesto Pichardo. We are doing part 2 on the history of CLBA and the landmark case, and some things that you don't know, some behind the scenes of what happened with Oba and his family, and just, the general aura, if you will, of that area of the world as Oba was embarking on this journey. We're going to continue our conversation where we left off. Oba, I know that you talked about the historical basis and the era of secular society in the 70s and the 80s, and we're going to continue that. And then you're going to go into the dangers, the things that you were facing, a lot of the things that the general public really didn't know about that was percolating. They just saw the story that the media was giving, but they didn't really, the country didn't really understand, like, the seriousness, the danger, the things that you were dealing with the community at large, the FBI, the death threats. I mean, tell the family what went down. It's the sacrifice was quite great.
Yeah, we have to kind of understand what was going on in the society as a whole, right? Not just in the narrow sense of our community. We have to look at how our community was received and got thrown in the rest of the broader issues of American society. Just to recap it very quickly, those of you that maybe have not heard the previous program, which of course I think you should before you be listening to this one. The 60s was all America. The 60s was America with the free love movement, that women's rights movement that came up, the civil rights movement for African Americans, Vietnam, the Vietnam protests to end the war. All of that. The 60s was extraordinarily transformational and hostile in America for whoever was already here, right? We're talking about riots. We're talking about police out there throwing stuff at crowds. We're talking about people getting hurt and getting thrown in jail. We had even the Black Panther movement. We had all kinds of things going on in the 60s all at the same time.
The American Indian movement, yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of stuff going on there at the same time. Very hostile, very aggressive. So, here comes Fidel Castro and his regime. The days were numbered for those that could leave the country before he would shut the country down, where no one else could leave. So you have the stress of people like myself and my family who were leaving in groves as fast as possible, leaving out their entire life. It was like, deleting their life up to that moment. That meant leaving your family members behind. That meant leaving your finances and your social status and your friends and everything, your whole world, leaving it behind. It was arriving here in Miami and hope that, that whatever you brought, that one suitcase had your belongings in there, because there were a lot of cases where the regime would dump your clothes out of your bags and just put your luggage on the plane, Others that, like in my case, my brother and my baggage, they went through our stuff and shredded all of our clothing. There were rags, unwearable. So all of a sudden you arrive in a new country. You don't know where you are. You don't know the language. You can't even recognize street names. Nothing. You're lost. So it was very traumatic, not only having to leave your country and all of your people behind, but also traumatic in your arrival, where within an hour or an hour and a half flight, all of a sudden you're in a different world, totally different world. And the world we arrived into was chaotic. It was chaotic because it was that same decade, you know. I arrived here in 1960, where before it became, you know, before the peak of the explosion of everything just blowing up at the same time, right? So we're caught up in America's chaos, which we had nothing to do with it, but we're caught up in it, right? And here we are arriving. So, you know, it became for us a safety issue, right? A safety issue before it became anything related to religion. It was a safety issue because as kids, I remember just the mere fact that we would try to walk down one block to the real small mom and pop store that was there, was putting ourselves in physical danger because the white boys used to frequently ambush us and throw bottles and rocks and they'd come at us with sticks and stuff like that to beat us up. We had no understanding as to why we're a target of such hostilities because we didn't even know the language. So, you know, that was the 60s for our community. And while that is going on, we're trying to establish ourselves here. We've got the trauma of those that we left behind, wondering what's happening to them, and trying to do whatever we can to remain in contact with them. So we've got our own chaos going on, which was political, and survival, because we arrived here with nothing. Then, you know, there really weren't any jobs, you know, abundantly available. So you had all these people who were professional people doing all kinds of whatever job came up. Go to work in factories, like my mom, who went to work for a factory and as a seamstress. And she used to get 1 cent, 1 penny for every collar that she would sew on a dress. 1 penny. Okay. So we know, we learned, we met, we experienced in our family, you know, this slave economy system, right? Which is basically the same thing that keeps going on with the migrant workers, right? Our family went through that. We know what that is. We weren't out there picking tomatoes or anything like that, but it was the same structure in the garment industry. It was the same thing inside of a building under the same harsh conditions. So, you know, all of that, right, is your 60s. And at the same time, here we are, our religious founders here, were, as they themselves were going through the same process. You know, what do you do in something like that? The only thing you can hold on to is your religious knowledge and your religion as a coping mechanism, right? To try to understand what the hell is going on, and also as a matter of survival and security. So by 1968, the first ordinations began here in Miami-Dade County. All right. And, that became a support system to our religious community and to our Cuban people. So now we had a little something that was structuring itself, okay? It was not structured. So that meant that people had to start manufacturing their own tools, their own necklaces. People, you know, we had to start networking. Where could these beads be purchased, you know? And then imported down to Miami for our religious stuff. All of our raw materials for practice and ordinations, all of that was scattered. You know, people would spend days and days and days going all over the place buying little bits and pieces of stuff and putting the whole together in order to get ready to make the ordination. Animals that we use, well, you know, those weren't local. In a local farm here in Homestead, Florida, you could go and order your animals. That didn't exist. You know, people had to figure out through the state where the Americans had their farms, and be able to go up there and run into one farmer who was willing to sell you 10 chickens. And you'd have to drive for another half an hour or 45 minutes to another farmer who was willing to sell you a goat, and gather that stuff and then haul them back to Miami, hours away, drive time. So it was those kinds of harsh conditions. It's not what we have today. We've got an easy path today, boy. Everything is organized. Now you can order your stuff online, for heaven's sakes. but no, man, it's not done. And now people get annoyed if they don't get it delivered on time. UPS overnight. Hey, man, you didn't send me my stuff. And then they're getting all bent out of it. Well, that's a privilege, I hate to tell you all, folks. You just need a generation that's totally spoiled and takes stuff for granted. Okay? They don't know how they got to what they have today. I have no idea, but I lived it. I grew up in that environment. Again, it was facing the bigotry on one end and trying to organize our religion, getting some sense of control of our lives. And the religion was a coping mechanism, and it was also a family, right? An extended family, a center of gathering and of people that have the same issues and struggling through the same kinds of stuff, and so it became a very tight community, helping each other survive the chaos that we find ourselves in. That's how you got to the internet online today, okay?
Oh,
There's
indeed.
things like that we went through, all right? And then, clothing, all these Yahoo wares and stuff like that. Hey, they didn't exist in the 60s. All that stuff, we had to go to fabric stores and buy different stuff and then go home on a little junky little sewing machine and put things on a table with a pair of scissors and cut them off, and start building the clothes. No. It's not like now you go to these fabric stores and you buy, what size are you, honey? Whoa, what's your size? Oh, I'm petite. Okay, fine, and then they go and buy the mold and and sit at home, and then they got all this beautiful artwork. Now it's an art piece. No. That all has become possible because of a lot of people, what they went through in the 60s, putting stuff like that together and organizing it and centralizing its availability. Then we went through the 70s with all this bigotry and all this stuff that was still going on, right? And our mission was to break it down in terms of our religion, right? Then by 79, we got Humane Society New York, who comes down to the state attorney's office in Miami, lobbying and pressuring them because they were still in the state attorney's office in New York and in Miami and in Chicago, by the way, a bill of goods. And that was that we were organized crime, religious cult. And we were classified that way in those early years by law enforcement. So they were putting pressure on state attorney's office to prosecute. Right? That's when, by then, you had every one of those police departments in these various locations throughout the country. They actually set up under what is called today Cult Crimes Division. They had these specialized units to come after us. Heavy. Big time.
And it's funny that you say that because they made a whole movie out of it. What is it, The Believers? They
had The Believers. Yeah, I have a couple of them. Yeah. During that time, you had SWAT teams started raiding our homes in the middle of ordinations. SWAT teams. Okay. So they were hoping that the issue of animal, or the possibility of, or the justice of the probable cause of animal cruelty would be enough for them to justify barging in SWAT teams, raiding your homes, and hopefully then they could frisk you and hopefully try to come up with other charges, you see? That would not be misdemeanors. That would be felonies. So we became a a daily target for police intelligence divisions, for drug enforcement divisions, and for SWAT. So our attention, was like, okay, fine. So we've already breaking down, we're making significant changes, breaking the walls down academically, hospitals, funeral homes, all of these things. Okay, fine. But now the new challenge, and it was very, very complicated, was, back then the Miami Herald published 2 articles, front page Miami Herald, classifying us, the DEA classifying us as organized crime. So now we had this new normal, right? Now they've created this justification that everyone in our religious practices were involved with narcotics and homicides, So we then get caught up with that stuff as well. So it has always been for us bigotry, the targeting because of bigotry, and it's always been about our own personal safety. So upon arrival, before we even sacrificed the first chicken, it was always just because of being an immigrant, escaping from communism and arriving here. That was enough to be a target as a community, let alone when you started adding, right, what we were unaware of, because that was not our reality in Cuba, which was then the civil rights, the whole black-white struggle here, right? We didn't know that.
And the
because that's not Cuban history.
And just to say, because I know what you mean, but the artifacts of that blackness, if you will, because it's not just this in America, it is the artifacts of this, which means
that all gets tied into it.
Yes, it does. The cultural, the religious, becomes a target. And I'm glad that, before we did this second hour, this fourth hour, you made me realize something, and I'm like, wow, knowing the cultural history of what was going on in the El Barrio of New York and in Miami, really opened my eyes, because I told you when I was a Yawol, they have always told the Yawols, oh, make sure you hide this. I'm just saying from my experience, it may be different now, to hide your leggies, to do this. And I said, I'm not, I'm a Lukumi, I'm very proud to be a priestess of Yamaya. And then you proceeded to break down to me, it's not so much of the secrecy, well, maybe it is for some, but mostly for safety, because of the cultural, historical.
It wasn't secrecy for us. For us, it was never about secrecy.
Right.
And I can speak to that because I grew up in that environment.
Right.
I wasn't told about it. That was my upbringing. Is it?
Indeed.
And I'm bringing the testimony as one that experienced it at that time.
But now that you're telling me the cultural, now that you explain, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that, and it makes so much sense. We pass down these traditions, but we don't really understand why, and you gave the significance.
Right. Look, independent of our knowledge, because that was not our reality in Cuba.
Right.
You see? Our reality in Cuba was politics, fleeing communism. No one in Cuba was being, caught up in a similar chaotic situation as the civil rights movement. Not in Cuba. Two different worlds. That's something that we encountered here and did not understand it because we couldn't even understand TV news because we didn't know the language. We didn't know what was going on. The only thing we saw were images, you see? Me, as kids, what I saw was images. I didn't understand what the breaking news reporter was saying. All I was seeing was, neighborhoods being burnt down, black people burning down their neighborhoods, right? Riots, police hurting people, and people hurting police, blood on the streets, stuff burning and blowing up. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I did not know. Who knew? Because we did not know the language. You see? There was no way for us to know, and there was, and it's not like today that, my God, you just say something in English or in Spanish, and somebody sitting next to you anywhere you go down here knows the language you're talking about and translates for you. You know? No, we didn't have translators. We didn't have school teachers that were bilingual. They were all English-speaking teachers. My entire full days in daycare was trying to figure out by mimicking in body language what I was being told all day. The way we were being in daycare, the way the morning hours, we were being, you know how we were being taught English? Watching Captain Kangaroo. This generation today, most of them don't even know what Captain Kangaroo was. You know? So, no, we were in La La Land, man. We were lost, okay? There was not an adequate system in place that could absorb this immigration, you see? It just did not exist. Our little schoolwork, the ABCs and stuff like that, was purely in English. We were trying to listen and try to mimic the sounds and try to understand what's the teacher trying to tell us. Composition? What was that? We're trying to figure out what are these letters being put together. We were reading a word. We were memorizing words, English words, in Spanish. Like, in other words, when the teacher would say, come, we as kids would hear the come, right? And try to mimic, try to get close to that pronunciation. Come, come, come. We're reading it as come, C-O-M-E, in Spanish. When that teacher says come, it's written as come, C-O-M-E, come in Spanish. Well, you know what? For us in Spanish, come is to eat. So then we had to figure out, that no, for the American person, when they say come, it does not mean eat. It means something else. What is it? All our school kids were having to do this, We didn't have a little pocket translator or anything like that like you got today, Or Google it, translator, Google it. No, we can't do that. We didn't have any of this stuff. We had to figure stuff out all the time in a very hostile environment.
So that's why it was dangerous for you, when you and your mom decided you already incorporated.
It was always dangerous.
Right. It was
always dangerous. And when we're talking about your necklaces, which is what you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your hand bracelets and stuff like that religious paraphernalia. Listen, we were taught from day one, do not wear this stuff outdoors. It makes you a further target that endangers you physically. Physically. It makes, you're a magnet when you do that, okay? If you think that just wearing normal and acting normal and going to the mom and pop store a block down is enough for these guys to be ambushing you and throwing rocks and beating you up and stuff, total bully stuff, well, you ain't seen nothing. Start putting those necklaces on and stuff like that and see what happens. So for us, we were taught by our elders. It was a matter of security. It was not a matter of secrecy. That was the core reasoning behind it. Now, with all the reason in the world, here we are, 20 years later, 1980, and my goodness, we're still going through stuff like that. When I pioneered law enforcement, because of the SWAT team raids and the stuff that was going on in our home is what led us, via CLBA, to establish a formal membership And then my mission became educating law enforcement, because we found that the level of ignorance was huge. And their perception of us being secretive, cult, and criminal was really concerning. So our mission turned into, we need to use our, we already had a track record and integrity established academically by 1980 that was sufficient enough to use to then go straight on to law enforcement and say, we're here and we're here to give you the reasons why you need classes. You have to deal with a new reality here in South Florida, and that is you have an Afro-Caribbean religion that has different beliefs and practices that scare the beans out of you people. So it's no longer about the simple bigotry of color and where you were born. Okay? It wasn't just the simple mere idea of discrimination, ethnic and racial discrimination. Two different things, which sometimes are overt and sometimes are covert. You see? Two different things. No, we were caught up now with a new reality, and it was now add to the existing, add religion. And religion then triggers this demonic notion, you see? Because now you hit those same police officers. You just embedded in their idea that these people are satanic. They're evil. They're here to do witchcraft and spiritual harm against you, the white people. Right? So that stirred that up, right? That stirred that up. And you can't blame them, because for generations, they've been taught that way, right? By their church pastor and by their social organizations, their schooling and everything else. We're in a society that everything is in the image of a white God who is empirically loving and wonderful. And if you're not with the program, you're the other. And if you're the other, you're an instant suspect of being evil. You're anti everything you believe in. You're anti all of that person's ethics, morals, upbringing, knowledge. You see, now you just really got into the person's psychic when you sit there and say, you see these foreigners? They're not just black people, they're white people too. You see that? They're Cubans, they're Puerto Ricans, they're Haitians. You see? And by that time, Hollywood and this society had already demonized voodoo, right? Used for horror films. Huh? So everything is demonic. You see? So now you add Lukumi, Yoruba, spiritualism, Palo. Now you add all this stuff about our heritage of Cuba into that existing package, that psychological misunderstanding and fears that these white Americans have, which is embedded in their upbringing. So now you have that crash going, you know, as a head-on collision. So, with the more reason that you don't want to wear your necklaces, the more reasons that you don't want to wear any symbols, that now law enforcement, with the assistance of some scholars, are identifying as our iconography. And now you're being ID'd by what you're wearing. It's no longer the color of your skin or the language that you're speaking. That's what gets added in the 80s. So by 1983, I had created the academic team of specialized people on Afro-Caribbean religions. It wasn't just the Cuban stuff. And then I managed to get them to understand that as law enforcement, they needed to truly listen and learn about our ways. and that our ways were not as, they had nothing to fear about it, other than their own embedded fears about the other, right?
And indeed, and it goes beyond.
So then that broke down that barrier. We got my whole team got certified by the governor and by the state regulations division, and we got accredited, and then we started law enforcement training on all of the Afro-Caribbean religions. That same argument, that same justification, that same importance, I carried that into Miami-Dade Community College and presented it and broke that wall down. I said, what is an institution like a university or a college for? What is it for? It is to educate. It is to educate on whatever is current and whatever is important and that has a value in the society in which that university or that college operates in. Well, you know what? Our religious beliefs are part of this community, and they're not being understood. So why is it that you people keep resisting, right, to educate if that's what a college is for? And college and universities are centers of controversy. So don't tell me that out of politics, out of white politics, you're going to block it, and you're going to keep blocking it because you've got no justifications. I'm sitting here bringing in a team with PhDs and master's degrees in every social science that you people are comfortable with, right? So they got your, they are within the framework of your society. I mean, these are people that are all studied here and graduated from the same universities that are blocking this topic from being exposed. So how do you do this? So that argument, I won that argument via Miami-Dade Community College. And we started the first courses. I designed those courses. And not only in English, I designed them and they were bilingual. The same courses that were offered in Spanish were offered in English. Because our entire team was bilingual. So we were addressing both communities. And we were teaching both communities where the misunderstandings were. You see? We're teaching our Spanish-speaking community, look, this is why they do what they do. And when you act or speak this way, this is what they understand, because it's a cultural thing. So you need to understand them, and they need to understand you. It's a two-sided avenue here. We cannot sit here and demand, we're in America, we've got rights, we're American citizens. No, that doesn't do it. That doesn't do it. You need to find yourselves in the middle, understanding each other. Okay? It takes understanding each other and removing the fears of the unknown about each other. And so those were my arguments, and this is why I was successful. And it was always done as part and on behalf of CLBA as its mission, isn't it? Again, selfless, educational, and in benefit of our entire community. Not only our religious community, but also the secular Anglo, the dominant culture here, the dominant society. It wasn't about, oh, I'm an Afro-American, No. Oh, I'm a Cuban. That's all cosmetic nonsense. It boils down to is we need to understand each other, okay? And we need to find ourselves in the center there and understand each other that when you're acting and speaking in a certain way, I know where you're coming from. And I don't react in a weird or hostile way because I understand where you come from, you see? And you can only get to that point if you talk to each other. And if you're really willing to talk to each other and listen to each other and put down this intense defensive guard, No, you got to break that down and truly be in the same psychological place. Let's make this work. Let's make it work. Let's talk to each other in a genuine way, open way, and let's get to understand each other. You see? And that was the only way we got through with these things. And that's why we were successful in these things, you know? Because that was the approach. It wasn't about our ethnicity or our color or none of that stuff. None of that stuff. Because Orisha worship, Lukumi, is ethnically blind and colorblind. This nonsense that we find here in America, and I say nonsense because of what, you know, what the downsides to that approach are. Understandably, we know why they are that way because of the cultural history, you see? We understand that. But that cultural history cannot continue, in my eyes, to serve as the foundation and the continuity of not sitting down, putting the guards down, stopping the hostility, the mutual hostility. Because when we speak of these things, we're always putting it on the white people. And we're not looking at ourselves in the mirrors. What are we projecting? We're always justifying ourselves by projecting and going back to history. No, it's the here and the now, and we have the human capacity, the ability to genuinely sit down and truly talk to each other as human beings and find that common ground and hold to it. You see? But we can't get there if we're not genuinely both sides willing to talk. You think we can't get there? So we shaved out all of those possibilities as a team among ourselves. When we went out there and we spoke, it was about this clear-cut, transparent message, which was selfless. Selfless. And that includes your ethnicity. That includes your darn color. You see?
Well, I think that you scared a lot of people during the case, and I think that that's why, you know, when you would tell me stories, you talk about this transparent message, and it goes beyond that, which is very much true. It's a European ideology, which is much more important, because I've had people of many colors who have said rhetoric to me, and I'm like, really? And I say that to say, I think that you scared people because this is why, you know, you told me the story last night of your mother, when you first got the physical location of CLBA, and your mother actually sleeping in the location because she was afraid that people were going to literally burn the location down, because you were talking about this transparent message and trying to create this dialogue, but there was like this resistance, even though you were breaking down barriers, there was this resistance
to change.
Yeah.
It's resistance to change. You see, the law, like we said, you know, the Supreme Court law says what it says. As a matter of rights. So what? So what? That's not going to stop people from saying, not in my town. Listen, a couple of years back, and you remember that case that I got involved in that case very quickly, when they were doing a ceremony in the city of Coral Gables here. You know? High-end city. Okay, what happened to all those poor people? They got a raid. Cops showed up and raided this place with their weapons pointing at everybody. All right? In Miami, should they not know better by now? Well, they did it. What was the first remarks that the white mayor delivered in the media? Not in my city. And he made very bigoted remarks, public remarks. That's why I went after him. And he had to backtrack, you see? So, you know, there again, 20 years after the law, we still have an incident in Miami. It wasn't in some remote, unknown area of the country, right, that's not aware of this. In Miami. One mayor. That guy's a bigot. That man is a bigot. And I'm repeating what I said to him in the media. I accused him of bigotry. I went after him big time. Very openly. It wasn't about this was discrimination. No, he was not motivated by discrimination. He was motivated by his white embedded bigotry. And I made him accountable for it, including we sued him. I went out there, recruited all the members of the religion that were impacted by this incident, and I did a class action lawsuit, and we sued that mayor and that city. They had to recoil. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that everybody in the city is. In fact, some of the officers that day that were out there were members of our faith. And they acted like Anglo police officers and did not say a single word that they themselves were members of the religion that they were raiding. 20 darn years later, this took place. Huh? You figure. Why? Because of one guy in a power position who's a bigot? And I don't care if he's white or black, because they're black bigots too, okay? And brown bigots. So I don't want to get caught up in the American nonsense that everything has to be categorized by color and stuff like that. Back to that true core. I don't care who you are, where you were born, where you came from. If you're a bigot, you're a bigot. You see? That's how we look at stuff like that. What are you as a human being? What are you showing me? What are you showing me? Well, your words and your actions are definable by one single word. Bigot. And we're going to find bigots in every race, every ethnicity. As long as you're a human out there, I don't care where you are living in the planet, you're going to find a bigot. We're going to find them. So, our church mission has been about facing that bigotry. Because every time you have a bigot expressing and acting his bigotry or her bigotry out, somebody's getting hurt. Somebody's getting hurt. Yeah? So, we gotta we've always faced bigotry. Now in the 80s, we included the bigotry because of religion, right? It's an add-on. It became a religious component. And we heard that bigotry, I heard that bigotry, as soon as the conflict started with the city of Hialeah by the elected officials in the city. They were the first ones that came out with these bigoted remarks publicly. They did it for months. Even white elected politicians in the city of Hialeah came out and made extraordinary, overt, bigoted remarks against us.
What were they saying?
They were Cuban.
What were they saying?
They were Cuban. Why? Because they also were infected with that Catholic social status Cuban, right? That always believed all of the stereotypical stuff of members of our faith in Cuba, which go back or originate in colonialism, is it? So they weren't hiding it, and most of the time they were being quite overt. And whenever I was able to face-to-face challenge them with a news camera in my face, live, I always looked for the opportunities to bring out the covert bigotry that they were hiding. I was successful in many instances to do that in debates. You see? I always looked for that and ways of bringing that covert, hidden bigotry. Bring it out, because that's your true heart. That's where you're really coming from. Everything in the argument else is cosmetic, is superficial, is gerrymandering. Get over it. I know where you're coming from. And I'm going to bring it out of you, and I'm going to detox you from it. Okay? While our community is protected by your covert bigotry. Because it's always back to the safety issue. And so, yeah, spiritually, we were being told, as a critical matter, that among the hostilities that were already happening was that somebody was already going to be trying to vandalize the church to the point of burning the place down. And it was very tough for us because how do you handle something like this, is it? So my mom ended up without any power in the building because our power had been shut off by the city. Our water was shut off by the city, and our garbage was shut down by the city. And this was an old building, an old shack, old wood shack, something right out of the South Plantation kind of shack, okay, which had to eventually be demolished and then a new building constructed. That was the plan. And that place, you know, it was rat infested, and we had an exterminator and everything. That place was a rotten place to be. Roaches and, you know, rodents and stuff. My mom stayed there for days at night, not sleeping, sitting on a chair all night on guard in the dark with the Miami heat because it was summertime. We would just take a little ice chest and leave some water and stuff like that there for her. So think of it as a mother, right? Think of this as a mom. Because of our religious heritage, Mom, we, the children, are part of and members of this faith, right? She got us into this. She brought us to life, right? And then now she's watching her children being targeted with death threats every day and actions that could have led to our injury or death. Several instances did take place. So it was real. It was real. Every time I would go, and this was a weekly ongoing thing, I would do radio talk shows, local radio stations. In most of those live radio programs, people would call with death threats. Okay? I never knew walking out of a program or walking into the station if I was going to get shot at or somebody was going to ambush me or something. That was always an ongoing daily risk, even by going to do a radio program. So our lives went from normal, successful business people to over the night back to the bigotry and personal safety issues. Overnight. So Mom is staying in the dark there under those conditions. She's wondering if we're going to make it home without an incident. Because after all, we are in the middle of the hostile city or the epicenter of the whole problem. We're having to cross the city to be able to get out of the city, to get on an expressway, to drive down to the other city where we were living. Right? We're having to go across the county. Anything can happen. So it wasn't a 5-minute ride home, you know. And we could not call for police protection because they ain't coming. They're not coming. They're part of the problem.
Right.
Right? So, okay, so it's Mom sitting at home hoping that her kids make it home. This was 7 days a week. And as we're driving home, we're like totally absorbed by the fact that we're leaving Mom, our elderly mom, in this place that doesn't even have electricity, rat-infested place. We're leaving there until early next morning that we can be back at the church. So she wasn't sleeping. She was up all night on guard. Well, we weren't doing all that good either, although we were in the air conditioner at home in our beds. But we weren't doing so well either because we've got our mind that any minute now the phone could ring and that's her. And we're going to have to do a 911, the Superman kind of thing. Jump out of bed and throw something on and get in that car and get your butt down there because mom is under fire. You know what I'm saying? And yes, the burning did take place. There was one initial incident where we had a mass, and since we did not have any electric or power or any services, we did one mass outdoors under the street light, using the street light and lanterns. And we did this outdoor mass. Well, we were on guard. Well, security was always an issue, especially when we got other people there, gathering. I never participated, sat down and had the opportunity to participate in a church mass. First of all, my face was the one that was publicly known because I was always in the news. So if anything, I was the target. So I had to have always in the back of my mind, who was I talking to, where was I standing, and how long was I standing there that could possibly endanger the person that's around me. And I had to consciously do that in a way not to have that person or persons feel the paranoia. Right? On top of that, I had to conduct myself as there is no possibility everything is wonderful. But I was constantly having to operate that way. I never was able to sit down in a mass and participate. I was having to play security. Right? And being totally aware and conscious every second where was I standing, what was I doing, and what the possibilities around me were. Especially when we're outdoors. It was a frequent incident of people driving by and throwing bottles at us. Glass bottles at us. Just driving by and just throwing them at us. We even got crucifixes thrown at us. Large crucifixes thrown at us. We got Christian sermons doing like an exorcism on us, on tape. Driving by and throwing those cassettes at us. What didn't they throw at us? You know? And that's just stepping out for a minute out to the, outdoor, just outside the door of the church. And you were an easy target. So, during this one service, this American woman shows up. And she said, that she wanted to observe what was going on, So, the way she said, the way she presented herself, it made her an instant suspect because we were already being forewarned somebody's going to come in and try to burn the place down. And the way she presented herself, the way she spoke to us, made her a credible suspect. And we let her in. But her eyes on it, isn't it? Well, she went over to where the group was gathered outside, and she acted as she was just there, observing and so on and so forth. When she thought that we were not paying attention, plus she was unable to detect everybody playing security, her eyes were on me. But she did not identify the other ghosts that were there protecting the group. Well, she walked on the side of the building and went to the back, to the rear of the building, and she got caught as she was lighting fire under the building. We had to put the fire out. The initial, blaze. We had to put it out before the building went up in flames. Called the cops to report it and never showed up. Nowadays, that's a hate crime. Federal hate crimes, is it? That's the kind of stuff that went on here. And and this was still not even at the peak of the problem. Local Christian churches organized and they created teams like the Jehovah's Witnesses do. Mm-hmm. They create these little teams and they go house by house, block by block, right? They actually did that for months around the entire neighborhood, intimidating people. All of that neighborhood got hit by these Christian teams. And they're there fear-mongering, telling everybody and convincing people that we were satanic, that their lives were in danger, that their young children were in danger because we sacrificed children and we sacrificed pets. Okay? And this was anti the Lord. And that they were knocking on doors, not only to inform them and to have them join their Christian cause, but also for them to help identify anyone in the neighborhood that were members of our faith, so that they could get together and do something about it. They were out there actually doing intel work. This went on for months. They hit every small business place in the area, speaking to the owners and intimidating them, and also trying to ID them and also get information if they knew of anyone in the area that were members of our faith, for them to squeal, put it forward, so that person could then be targeted. This went on for 7 years. So when I hear the current generation who are so quick now, some have even done it, they've taken the one paragraph of the Constitution, freedom of religion, no government interference, blah, blah, blah. They quote that, right? I see it on social networks. I'm quoting that. I go like, really? Are you folks, does this generation really understand what those words mean and how they are put into practice? I don't think so. I'm not convinced that they do. I think that it's literal. It's literal, and taking this language literally and have no idea how it really works. Huh? To me, I find it amazing. And so, I think we need to have this conversation, you see? And this new generation, because it's back to our mission, our religious mandate in my family. It has to be selfless, right? Got to educate it. And what you're doing, this mission of CLBA is not for now. It's for the future and the generations, because they will need it. Well, I keep thinking, because I keep getting older. My mom's now in her 80s, right? The big warrior is now in her 80s. You tell me. Yeah, we are concerned. We are concerned. We're concerned that the new existing current generation, those that are going to inherit and who have already been benefiting from our work in significant ways, are taking this win for granted as empirical, as it will never change, and they're carrying on their crazy lives without being connected and aware and reminded. This stuff don't work that way. This stuff doesn't work that way. Look, just because we got a good ruling on animal sacrifice, that's not all we got. That wasn't even the intention of going to court for us. That became the legal argument because of the city of Hialeah, not because of us. Like I told the judge in trial court when he asked me, the judge asked me to stop the Hialeah cross-examination at one point and says to me, Mr. Pichardo, this is just a hypothetical. He says, if the court bans animal sacrifice, will the animal sacrifice stop? My answer to the judge was, absolutely not. You see, I'm basing myself, Your Honor, in history. This religion came from Africa, in the minds and knowledge of African people who were enslaved. They never lost their religion. I said, think of it, Your Honor. It survived slavery. It survived the plantation, Your Honor. And the thereafter. And the people of my religion have always, their security, their safety has always been an issue to them. They've always been under the gun. Always. They have survived it all. And even today, an atheist regime, communist Fidel Castro regime took over our country. And not even Castro has been able to put the brakes on this. He's had to cave in. He's had to legalize and give our people the goats and chickens for our ceremonies and not arrest them and allow us to practice our religion. An atheist state has had to do this. That's the strength of this, Your Honor. You can pass all the laws. You can do whatever you humanly want to suppress and to eradicate our religious practice. It's not going away because that is too embedded, too deep, and too personal to the individual. And there's been historically way too many heroes of our faith that died for it. They've been arrested for it. That have been tortured for it. That's the Cuban history. Nobody's afraid of you when it comes to being arrested for animal sacrifice. To us, that's not a threat because that has always been a way of life to our people. You're not going to take it away with your rules. It's not going away. So being in court, you see, for us was never about whether American law recognizes, legalizes, gives us the privilege of sacrificing chickens because we're going to do it whether it's legal or not. Because you know what? Before we went to the federal court, since the 60s, the Cuban community, the Lukumi people, they didn't know if it was legal or not. We've been doing it every day, every week. Whether we got arrested or not. What's another 20 years, Your Honor? What's another 30 years to us? It's meaningless. We're going to keep doing it because it's our religion. This is what we believe in, and you're not going to take it away. And if you're going to put me in jail for it, we'll happily go to jail for it, you see? We're that committed to our religion. We're that intensely committed to our Orisha and Ekgun. So don't come with your threats because it ain't going to happen. It ain't not going to work. It did not work in the ultimate scenario where the religion was illegal and people lived in plantations. That didn't stop it. Incapable. They were not able to stop it. And everything else that came thereafter, it wasn't worse. It was becoming more and more relaxed in the society. The worst was surviving in the plantation. That if a chicken disappeared, right, people are going to ask, where's the chicken in that plantation? Because that was food for everybody. That white man, that plantation owner was going to, he had a head count, and he was going to go, where's my goat? And they got away with it in the plantation. All right? Everything else was relaxing. As things evolved, things got better. Little by little, little by little, the struggle goes on. The struggle goes on. And the struggle goes on against bigotry. It's all bigotry. You see? And so, what? Here we got in the 60s and we reorganized our religion and we started sacrificing our chickens again. Very quickly. Very quickly. I mean, within 8 years of being in America, we were already having full-blown ordinations to the priesthood. That's how organized we were already. In 8 years? Really? Come on now. Did we care? We did everything possible not to disturb or cause, or cause the attraction of others to call the cops. But every time we did a ceremony where there was a chicken involved, every time we had a congregation, people got together in a Orisha house, in a religious home for any reason, we knew that just because of the numbers of people and the numbers of cars outside would call the attention and the cops would drive by, we were a target. We knew that. Secretive? It wasn't about secretive, it was about security. Our security, because those in power with their bigotry would come at us. It's not because our religion was secret. It wasn't because we were doing something weird. It's because we would become a target.
Well, weird to secular society because, they're the ambassadors of the hegemony, but that's a whole nother show within itself.
Yes. So it's always been about that. That's the core of the conversation, you see? That's it. It's always been not about us, it's been about them and how they behave towards others. That's what it's been about. I remember when academically, all the first anthropologists and stuff that I started working with and dealing with, they're the ones that come in, this guy isn't secretive. To gain your trust, to get you to open up and trust them and give them your secrets, you see? That was the anthropology of the 70s.
Or the anthropologists.
I used to laugh at these people.
Or the anthropologists who would get initiated, like Maya Durgan. You know who that is.
Well, you weren't having any of those in the early 70s, okay? That comes after, you see? And what I'm saying to you is that they were coming to us this way in the 60s and 70s, before most of them got made, This is what I'm talking about. And they would come in with this secretive stuff, And it was funny to us because until I started saying, you know what? I started challenging that model of research. I said, what do you think, we're fools? As priests, those of us that are diviners, we spend our lives doing spiritual consultations, readings, to people that just walk off and come in to us. We don't know nothing about them, and they're sitting in front of us and we're doing the readings. And we are very accurate at telling them what's going on in their lives. Do you not think that if we have that capacity, we have the capacity to give you, the scholar, an appointment and not know where you're coming from? The same way as a diviner, I sit here and observe the client. I do that to the scholar. I said, you guys coming in here like thinking you're doing something special? You come in here to observe me. Don't you realize that I'm observing you? It goes both ways. Where'd you get that in your mind? Who taught you that in anthropology, that it's a one-sided analytical situation here? We're using our knowledge, our training to analyze you. Where are you coming from? Where are you going with what I'm telling you? You're also the specimen of study. Don't you get it? Where'd you come up with this idea that you can be so covert in your truth? And you gain my trust so that I'm spilling the beans, is it? Boy, you're good. Boy, you're good. Give me a break. Don't you understand that every word, every bit of information I'm giving you is because I'm also observing and knowing where and thinking where you're going with this? Or do you think that I'm not thinking about that stuff and I'm so trusting? Just why? Because you're acting so nice with me? Really? Really? The mere fact that you're here and you're questioning it is because you're here to benefit from the information. You're going to go out and exploit what I'm telling you. You're not here because you're a nice person, scholar. There's a specific interest in mind. There's a goal here. This isn't casual conversation, genuine, transparent conversation. You're here to brain drain me for your benefit, so you can be called the expert. You're not coming clean. Are you? You know, I can like you as an individual and all that, but that's not your end game. So I never lose track of what your end game is, Mr. Scholar, Mr. Interviewer, Mr. Reporter, Miss Reporter, Missies, you know? No, I don't think so. This idea of innocent field research by school students, no, nothing is that innocent. No. There's a vested interest in this, and you have to never lose track of that and understand what the bottom line is and where is this going and how is it going to impact the broader safety, security, and image of our people. Not for here and now, but for 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. What is this going to be like because of what I just told this person? That's the old way of thinking.
Well, do you fear that?
Now what we have is the internet age. Everybody's blowing up nonsense without thinking, is it? But CLBA is for that future generation. But you know what? As we get older, and there's a hell lot few left of us, very few left of us, right? The next 5 to 10 years, what's left of us, most of us are going to be walking around with walkers. Some of us are going to be sitting there mumbling, jumbling because we had open heart surgeries. We're going down, folks. People like me are going down. It's the reality of our physiology of our life. We're going down. So what I'm saying on behalf of CLBA, you all got today, you're all abusing and taking for granted what people like me struggled for 40 years to create so that you could have it. So my message today, 2013, the year of outing stuff, right? It's got to come out in the open, you know? Well, you know, here's what I'm saying. Yeah, you need to put down your boom boxes and your booty bumping and all this dress and showing your behind and your underwears and this this nasty way of communicating with yourselves and in a very degrading way. Women are hoes and this and all this nastiness. You know, that's not Orisha worship. That's not Orisha worship. That's current fashionable secular living, lifestyle, speech, and behavior. That's not Orisha worship. That's not the core, the essence of Orisha worship. So all I'm saying is, look, within the next 10 years or so, what's left of us, we're going to be pretty messed up. We'll be right around our 70s. And, you know, our health, we start to break down. That's nature. Okay? We got 10 years here. Got a little window. Are y'all going to keep doing what you're doing out there? Because you guys are the ones that are going to, they are already living the benefits of this legacy. This is something that the slaves in Cuba hoped for. The CLBA victory in the United States of America was the first country here in our diaspora to recognize everything about what we do. It was, the Supreme Court didn't just grant us or recognize animal sacrifice. They accepted our death rights, our birth rights, priesthood, that word, priesthood, priest status before the law. Our rights of passage. All of that was part of the CLBA case, folks. Our right to sacrifice was only one component and was, of course, the most controversial one that got us through the courts.
And that's the one that everyone mentions. I hate it.
But everything that precedes that, everything about us, including our divination, is protected. Because it is religious counseling, and under law, it is confidential. The same client attorney privileges that lawyers have, the same that Catholic priests and other ministers have when you go into confession and stuff like that. That same legal recognition is in writing in the CLBA case, folks. We won that stuff in trial court. Going up to Supreme Court, what we won is what was left of it, which was the chicken argument. We could care less about that. Our main thing was making sure that every other aspect of our faith was recognized and hands off by government. That we achieved the same equal treatment under the law when it came to our rites of passage and our ordination rights, our priesthood status, all of our marriage rights. Our marriage rights. People are still, after 26 years of CLBA public challenges through the court systems, people are still going to Christian churches to get married. They're still doing that. Our own people are still doing that. Why are you not marrying under our religious tradition? It is legal. It is recognized. We made that happen in the CLBA case, beyond a reasonable doubt. We gained that status. We can do it just like any other mainstream denomination in the United States of America under the same legal protections and acceptance. We won that in CLBA. And then the only thing the Supreme Court did, because Hialeah did not dare to challenge it after trial court, the only thing the Supreme Court was, well, okay, you guys are not going to revisit any of this stuff and challenge it. Okay, fine, you're hereby recognized, okay? We won that in trial court. So everything that we started in the 70s, right? Think about that timeline and the issues. We can now, by law, walk into a hospital and say, I want you to put that little sticker you all put on the door, do not disturb, because of religion. Right now, this person is being ministered to. Hospitals, every hospital in the United States has that policy. They have to put that sign on the patient's door. We can now go and say, I'm here, I'm Reverend so-and-so, here's my credential, and put that sign up, do not disturb until I'm done ministering to that patient in that room. We can now do that, and there isn't a hospital on the United States of America and can deny us or continue to deny us that right. We won that CLBA. But it all started by me. That all started by me in the 70s, right? Going to the ER rooms and starting that fight from the ground. You see, creating that foundation. What the court did now is recognize all of that foundations that we had created years before we got to the court. Right? Now it's a matter of law. No one can deny CLBA what I'm saying in this country. Not one darn funeral home can force us or continue to force us to register our deceased loved one as under the name of some other Christian denominations to get burial rights and stuff getting done right. No, now we've had tambores. We've done death, we've done our honoring our deceased member, doing our death rites, going into that funeral home and doing our tambores and lifting that casket and carrying that casket to the car. And we played that drum at the cemetery all the way to the ground. We've buried our dead the way we're supposed to, with honor and with integrity and so on and so forth, in our way. That we gain that, you see? We gain doing that. Whoever does it different nowadays is because the family decides to do it. You know what I'm saying? Out of their own family free will. But it can no longer be imposed by the funeral homes or the cemeteries. You see? We gain that at CLBA case. We gain this. So it's marriage. It's our death rights. You see? It's all of these things, folks. I won those cases in the Miami-Dade County public school system in the early 80s. A case of a little girl, 8-year-old. They had human resources there. Everybody, they were going to put the mom in jail because the kid was ill. Doctors could do nothing else for this child, and she took her out of school. First, she notified the school that she was going to be ordained, took her out of school, and ordained her into Yemaya. They're going to put the mom in jail. By the time I intervened, I had the meeting with the school board officials and the school board attorney. I fought it out in the African American Studies Department at the University of Miami, where I was operating from. We had that meeting there. 3 districts and the lawyers. Well, I won that argument. And from that particular case on to date, the Miami-Dade County School District approved and recognized all of the IAWO requirements for a child or anyone, for any of the students. They can wear their religious necklaces. They can cover their heads. They do not have to be outdoors at noontime. Or, young children be out in the play yard in the school or being forced to play and overheat and in those hours. The child can go to the cafeteria and eat with their spoon or even bring their own spoon to school. They don't have to, use the norm for other children in the school. No, they have their rights. They're recognized here in Miami-Dade County because I fought that using CLBA and we won it. For kids. That is one of the most personal big, satisfying wins for me because I was a victim when I was in the 11th grade of being thrown out of high school because of my religion.
And let me just say that's not just Miami family, because I know that Oba always refers to Miami-Dade County. However, this does apply to everywhere, because I know that there are parts of the country that is not, I repeat, is not like Miami, that is not like New York, because we take that for granted. On the West Coast, they have their whole,
you
they have
say
their
New
own,
York?
they have their own set of issues.
Let me tell you something. We've gotten cases, because I handle all this stuff for CLBA all the time. I've gotten so many cases out of New York dealing with schools and children. Just like the case I just mentioned in Miami.
That's
I've gotten
what I'm
them
saying,
from prisons. I get them from prisons every year. That's another thing that we've done with CLBA. We've ministered in federal corrections.
You guys used to do masses at
We used to do masses for the inmates, and we used to do rituals for the inmates. Not only we used to do divinations in December toward the end of the year, we used to go to the corrections here, the federal corrections here, and we used to do a dinner and a wang, a babaluaye, a wang for all the inmates. I mean, full blown. We used to bring in everything we need to do that. Okay. Well, you all know that you see in your own religious homes. We brought it all in, and we had to, the prison had to clear that stuff. And all that stuff was chopped up, put in place. You name it. I had the privilege, the honor, to sit there on a babaluaya ceremony, the first one we did in prison. And direct and start the Oro Egun, Aumba Waori. Okay? For the ancestors of those inmates. And then share our Babaluaya dinner, our traditional dinner. We've had the honor and privilege in my lifetime for us to do that, to break that stuff, those barriers down. We had the honor and privilege in one of these prisons here that we got the inmates. Washington approved a temple, a Lukumi temple, established and managed by the inmates. Were there some retaliations? You bet. But it got done. We broke that up. We got that done. As soon as that was done, CLBA became an outside support system to the actual prison Lukumi temple. We got that done. So you see, folks, it's not just about the chickens here.
And also, I want to make a comment too, because we're embarking on the 2-hour mark. Because I've heard people make comments about this. Oh, well, I'm not Lukumi. However, if you've been listening to the past 4 or maybe 5 hours that we've been on for this 20th anniversary, it does, Oba said the diaspora, so that would mean that it means, tell me if I'm wrong, Oba, because you told me this before, espiritismo, palo mayambe. I know that people who are voodoo, who have come to have had issues, condom play. I mean, indigenous tradition, period, is indigenous tradition. So, family.
We have helped our Haitian community here, the voodoo community. We've assisted them in guidance, right? In certain moments that they've had some issues here in the community, and we've helped them with how to protect themselves and how to get things done based on what we have accomplished. Because you see, I'm glad you raised this, because there's this mentality that everything is black and white, and it's not, is it? In America, and in particular, the reason why our case is a landmark case is because the justice has said that when we're in the treatment of religion, whatever you do against religion or attempt to do against religion, it's all about the law or the action has to be neutral and of general applicability. In other words, equal treatment. So, the same way you said earlier, that there's been over 3,000 cases that have, in the courts, that have cited our case.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, none of those were Lukumi cases.
None of them. Not one single one
None
of them. None
those
of them.
have everything to do with every other denomination out there that's not Lukumi.
They even had a polygamy
the law's
one.
The law.
Right?
The law's the law. And it's equal treatment, and it has to be neutral, and it has to apply to everyone.
Indeed.
So you see, someone practicing voodoo, and they're in the middle of ceremony, and they're sacrificing a goat. The cops can't go in there and say, "Oh, you're voodoo. You're not protected by the CLBA court ruling." I'm sorry, they are. Yes, they are. Because it has to apply to everyone. This case is not just to benefit CLBA. It's to benefit every other tradition that is involved in a similar religious conduct as ours in Lukumi. It's going to cover the Palero. It's going to cover the Trinidadian Shango worship, the Baptists. It's going to cover the Obia. It's going to cover all these people. I'm sorry. And yes, get it through your skulls here. I gotta say this. Okay? Because this is the current modern madness that we're going through. Yes, it does cover the Brazilian candomblé, and more important, it covers you, the so-called new label traditional Yoruba.
Uh-oh. I think we'll get emails about that one. No,
the reason why you, the new so-called label traditional Yoruba, can get away with sacrificing a goat here in America is because of the CLBA ruling. All right? And I would say, if you can ever get it in your heart to be gracious enough to at least recognize that, I'd be a happy man.
Oh, boy. You're so funny. Oh,
remember this. I have repeated this in both programs, people. I've repeated this in both programs. Our Yoruba ancestors, our Eguns, and our Yoruba Orishas mandated upon my family to carry out this mission, which is selflessness. So when we went to court and what we have won applies selflessly to everyone.
Well, I'm glad you're saying it.
And that includes the traditional Yoruba that are practicing in the United States of America.
Well, I'm glad you said it and you got it off your chest. I just wanted to mention it because
also, I must say this, and also, this is the United States Supreme Court, better known for the Supreme Court of the United States in Washington, D.C.
Which overrides
This is not a state. Our case is not a state Supreme Court.
Right.
It's not a district court. No. This went to no other court. It got resolved in the United States Supreme Court. Up there. That's where the buck stops. Our ruling is a landmark case. Every city, every county, every state has to abide by our court decision. That is a fact. This is a fact as American law, as a USA law. Okay? Don't believe, because there's been incidents, I get them, There's challenges out there. In fact, there's a case going through federal court right now. Who the police officers, it's a case up in the Northeast, claimed animal cruelty and what have you. No such thing, but they did it anyway. And they had the audacity to say to our people, here's the fines, and you got to go to court, and da-da-da-da. Right? And when our people said to them, hey, there's a Supreme Court ruling that says that what I'm doing is legal, this is not animal cruelty, they said, oh, that doesn't apply here in our state.
And they believed it.
Let alone. Okay? I still hear stuff like that. I've heard it from the Northeast. There's pending cases. I've heard it in the Bible Belt, some cases out there. And I'm talking about, heard about it because, I've been involved in these cases. I'm not, because this is not hearsay. This is people having these issues and contacting me and me helping them how to resolve it. Okay? And it's been paleros having these problems. And there's been Lukumi having these problems. And I know of some Yorubas have had these problems. And I'm not talking about Yoruba Nigeria. And I'm talking about African Americans that now say that they are Yoruba. They're following the Yoruba traditional system, right? They've had some problems too. You know what? That little white flag brings on the peace. It's CLBA. That's the case. Now, for you women, another little point of reference as a matter of law and consciousness. Are we not going right now, in our federal politics, do we not have it nationally, this intense movement of the right-wing religious people, the radicals, that have an agenda against abortion? Are they not trying to water down and weaken the Roe versus Wade case? That which was settled by the Supreme Court decades ago. It is the national law. It is legal. Are they not challenging it state by state and finding new ways to undermine federal law? They're doing it. So, again, the word safety comes to mind as the urgency, the unforgettable. What I'm saying that the new generation needs to never forget. The same way that the abortion and the clinics and all that's being challenged in different ways, and those civil rights that have been codified by the Supreme Court, Congress, it's legal and yet it's getting watered down. It's under attack. Don't think for a moment that our case cannot be. Not in America. Don't be so sure of yourself that that could never happen. There's no such thing as that it can never happen. You cannot think this way. You have to live by the rule of, yes, it can happen. It can get watered down. And I must always be on guard, protecting and safeguarding the civil rights that you now enjoy.
Well, that's why we'll clone you and you'll never die.
clone me?
Well, just do eugenics on you.
Come on now, when I die, give me a break for a change, right?
Siddiqui Bakari would just cringe at what I just said, but I'm being funny. You're never gonna die, Oba, so we don't have to depend on someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Listen, what cannot die, I can die tomorrow morning. What cannot die is the spirit, that spirit of selflessness. What cannot die is the constant being on guard against the bigotry. That's what cannot ever die among our people and our generations to come. That can never die from us. If we allow it to die, hold on. Okay, we're going to be in a real bad mess. And also think of it this way. The CLBA case also had political changes and impacts in Cuba. It has. But since we're in America, we only think that the entire planet is about America. It's had an impact in the laws of Mexico. It's had an impact in the laws of Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? We have been, because of the CLBA case, more protected. Our rights have been more protected than Brazil. I've talked to leaders in Brazil. Our stuff is more advanced for legal protection. Those leaders that I spoke to years ago, we talked many times as to how they can improve their legal standing in Brazil. I'm not talking about toleration of candomblé. I'm talking about for real legal protections. And they've been making their advances based on our experiences, our knowledge, and what we have said to them and helped them rationalize and consider. You know, they've used that information in ways that advances their standing. So I don't want to sit here and sound like we're bragging. When you do something this big, there's consequences, there's an impact, there's a chilling effect. And there's a chilling effect that nobody seems to want to talk about, which is kind of absurd and pathetic. We want to talk about our history. We want to cherry pick our history. And then on some that's current, that is historically important and impacting. America, the first in the diaspora to legally give us full protection under the law. Right across the board, not just chickens. All the other countries have been following, given the chilling effects of what we accomplished in our landmark case. Right now, we have members, certified clergies in Spain, for example. How do you think they get travel visas into the United States? They file in Spain, they file their paperwork in their country for a visa to enter the United States. And you know what they're putting in there? Certified clergy, CLBA. And the government of Spain and the American government, they say, okay, fine, welcome to America. Where do you want to come? What we have achieved is very broad, very precious, if we get our mind around it. Same stuff I've worked the same cases with members of Mexico. that would otherwise now would have been allowed to come into the United States for a week or 2 or a month. They got their visas because CLBA gave them the paperwork and said, yep, give it up. And they've had that travel visa in a heartbeat. No more nonsense. No more nonsense. Cuba kind of started the same way. It's evolved. We don't have to really be involved anymore where things are at this point. But it certainly didn't start that way. We broke that wall down too. Our legal standing here broke that down as well. And in in the context of Cuba, it wasn't because the Cuban government didn't want our people going over there. On the contrary. There's huge benefits for our religious community to be going to Cuba. So Castro opened the door to that. It's all about money. The problem was the U.S. laws and problems here. Well, there's no longer is there anything in the U.S. travel issues that prohibits you to go to Cuba because you're going to have some palo or Lukumi ceremony that you need to do. That's no problem anymore. Well, that didn't just happen because of, I don't know, somebody's egging out there that did something and changed the policy of the U.S. government. That didn't coincidentally take place and apply to our religion. Because if all I did to break that down, if I did that, unless I was having nightmares of doing it, I'm having dreams of seeing myself having these debates and stuff and breaking that wall down. They were just dreams. I woke up in the morning and I had my cafecito. Then I realized it was just a dream. No, that took a lot of doing. And it took a lot of hostile doing. They didn't want to give it up. So even those folks here that are constantly now traveling to Cuba in droves because they seem to believe that Cuba, whatever is in Cuba, is better than what is here and preceded all of this. That privilege, somebody worked really hard to make that possible. And that was CLBA. That didn't just happen. We worked on that very hard. But you know what? That didn't make the news. Didn't have to. We didn't need to advertise what we did, what we do and stuff like that. But we did. That's part of the unspoken stuff that people need to know,
Well, now they know. That's why I wanted to do this broadcast, and that's why, it's like, why reinvent the wheel? I know people in other parts of the diaspora are like, oh, we want to create this organization. Why reinvent the wheel? Just collaborate with the link, if you will, and expand it. Why reinvent something and make life hard? It's already gone to the Supreme Court and things of this nature. Investigate, research. I don't know. It's very mind-blowing. This is why.
Well, those are growing pains, Tia. These are growing pains.
Yeah, it is.
Okay? It's a process. It's growing pains. All I'm saying is, be informed. Look at the legacy. Look at the ethical and moral standing of this mission. And that it has been consistent since 1974. We're not off track. We've never deviated from the track. And it has delivered for everyone. Even for those that are not members of our indigenous religions. It has even delivered in hundreds and thousands of cases for other religious organizations, mainstreams that hate us, that don't understand us, they have even benefited from the CLBA ruling. That's the magnitude of this ruling. That's the significance of this stuff. So it has gone and well beyond us. It is not about the I, the me, the I am, self-centered nonsense. It is certifiable as Edgar Orisha mandated it to be. Selflessness has to apply and benefit for all. And all does not just mean all in our community. Here's the evidence. It has been all right across the board and beyond the boundaries of our indigenous traditions. And that's the beauty of what perhaps at the beginning we were incapable of even understanding it in such clear terms, you see? But today I can sit here and say, look, this is it. It has been about this from the beginning, and it still is, and it's intact, and the integrity of it is still there. You know? It's still there. But I'm here to say, the same way I was told very early on in my priesthood, you need to quickly prepare, get ready, gain the knowledge and the skills and so on and so forth, because you're going to need them for the benefit, for that broader, large benefit for those to come. You all better stop playing around so much with social networks and stuff and being so distracted, and start zooming in, start focusing, because Dia is your generation right now, right?
Yeah.
That we need to really focus, because you guys are the ones who are going to inherit this, your generation.
That scares me.
And so what are you all going to give? You know, how well prepared is this generation? When they can't even, I don't even hear them talking to me beyond Supreme Court. Oh, we got the right to kill chickens. They can't even get holistically get their minds around what it meant even for the sacrifice of chickens. It's this soundbite. Is what I hear. You know, I'm just going by what I constantly hear. It's a soundbite. Folks, we need to get beyond the soundbites.
We need to be creating a think tank, and I renege what Oba says about social networks, unless you're doing collaboration, you know what I'm saying, and hooking it up.
Got to dedicate some time to this topic and get your minds around this topic.
Yeah.
And you know what? The advantage, you got the advantage that we didn't have. You do have the social networks.
Yeah, because I'm talking to you.
Use it for the right stuff.
Yeah.
Use it for the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Use it. You've got a great tool. Use it. We did not have this. Use it the right way. Use it the right way and focus on this stuff, okay? Like, we just dedicated 4 hours to this topic, dear.
I know we did, Oba, and I love every minute.
How are we doing it? How are we doing it if it's not the technology, right?
That's right.
Okay, then folks out there, they need to go like, you know what? Use some of your time. Use it. Use it. You've got a worldwide tool to reach each other and work on this to continue that security, that benefit, that privilege that you're enjoying right now of being able to practice your religion the way it was meant to be. Okay? Well, you got to guard that. You can't leave the door open because somebody's going to come in and mess it up.
Ain't that the truth?
And you gotta get the skills and get the knowledge, right, that you need to be able to continue to challenge the future bigotry. Bigotry ain't over. It's not gonna be over for a long time. It's not going anywhere. It dresses differently, but it's still, bigotry is bigotry. It changes clothing, it bathes, and puts on a different suit and stuff. No, it's fine, but it's still bigotry. So you know what? Bigotry just gets more sophisticated as a matter of law.
What did I tell you last night, Oba? I said, this is Abiku, and I was being funny, and I said, this is the Lucifer's playground for a reason. You understand what I'm saying? So what you're saying, we wouldn't have to do all these things if, this is what it is. So, someone said to me once, oh, you shouldn't be what did they call me, an armchair santera, because we do a lot of internet things. And I laughed. I said, well, you know what? If one does not do this, every secret that the wise ones, I ain't talking about ones with long years on their head, I'm talking about the wise ones, they'll die with this information. So, you can say that all you want to, however, we need to be doing our thing. And like, you live in Miami, I'm here in Denver, I will be getting on a plane soon to come see you. However, we need to make this happen, because you said my generation. Well, you know what, Oba? I'm just going to keep it real with you. I'm very fearful of my generation and some ones who are a little older than me.
You're not just fearful. We as the makers and players and shakers of this legacy, we're all running out of time here. And if you don't think that we're concerned with it, if you all think that we don't see the current condition of our people and we're not concerned about that, boy, y'all people in there, you're not listening. You haven't been listening for years. For decades, you haven't been listening. All right? We gotta get the personal stuff out of here. Gotta get that emotional nonsense out of the equation. If people like me would have been heartbroken, sobbing, tearful, and weak every time somebody said something that hurt my feelings, we wouldn't be where we are today. If we're going to be that ultra sensitive and weak, listen, we could have not succeeded. We could have not continued to succeed. You cannot win that way. You can't win this way. You see? That's not the winner. That's not the winner. And ignoring it, that's not a winning card. Because the aggressor, bigotry doesn't stop. It's always coming at you. And you want to ignore it, then you must love to be victimized. In America, there's equal treatment under the law. It's neutral. And it's for everyone. It's not for a chosen few. You stand your ground. If the forefathers of in the African American experience, going back to slavery, we all think that was like here. Come on now. It's this new generation with their pants down to their knees and bootying, and you think that stuff is really recognizing and preserving the legacy, the sacrifices, the hardships the losses and the gains of those African American forefathers that stood their ground so that y'all can be doing what you're doing right here, right now, today, as we speak in this program? Are we really honoring those folks? Are we? And now I ain't even talking about religion. Huh? Are we doing that at least? No. 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 We got trash music which is what's popular. It's not just about the rhythms, folks. Just listen to those lyrics. What those forefathers fought for respect. Fought for respect. For equality. This generation on a daily basis trashes it. In their lyrics, in their entertainment shows. I see that. I find it unbelievable. But that's where we are. You know? That's where we are. And then when you bring it up, everybody gets touchy and sensitive and offended. Well, you know, Mr. and Miss Sensitives, take on some responsibility. Look at yourselves. Look at your patterns of speech. Look at your modalities. All this bad boy and bad girl, all this trashy stuff that we're seeing here, which has become fashionable. Really? Really? How does that honor the legacy of those African American forefathers and mothers? Tell me, I don't understand it. I want to learn because I don't see that, how it connects, how it honors it. I see how it degrades it, how it trashes it, how it feeds and strengthens the historical stereotypes against a people. Everything that those African American forefathers fought for to erase is what that same new generation of that same community is now holding to be fashionable and puts into practice among themselves. And this is what they show the world. I ask myself, as not being directly part of the African American community, right? I'm just a little Cuban here.
Well, let me correct you, because it's not just African Americans. It's white kids, black kids, Latino
Wait a minute.
kids.
I'm going there.
Yeah,
I'm going there. See, don't get kinky on me. I'm going there.
I was about to say, okay.
See, this is what happens. People get kinky. You see? Hold on. Stop that. That's what I see. And I say, please stop that. I don't see how that honors that legacy, you see? And we see that in other communities as well. It's not just the African. You know? If you go to the Mexican community, you see the same thing. The Latino community, you're seeing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? You just go down the line. You know? Everybody like, excuse me, what is happening here? What is happening here, right? This generation is going nuts. And just trashing all of this legacy that's out, you know, that's part of our respective histories, right? That were progressive, what people literally died for, to remove, to erase. Now bringing it back and reinforcing it, it's become fashionable. Like, what is this neo-Nazi all stuff going on here now, right? You're like, excuse me?
I'll be cool, baby.
Right?
It is.
Excuse
truly.
me, what y'all thinking and doing here? What? What? And the numbers of recruits has increased according to FBI statistics, right? You go like, Are you serious? I thought the world learned something from that kind of madness. Now you got this brand new white boy generation bringing all this, glorifying all that horrible human history. Huh? You're doing that. That's fashionable. That's cool. Really? Look at the prison culture. Gang so-and-so, gang so-and-so, gang so, you know? You're like, what? And it's not in jail. Their colleagues are outside, you know? It's all a network. They're all doing the same thing inside, outside. And you're like, is this where we're going? What's going on here? What's going on here? So this generation is getting bombarded by all of these distractions, right? All of these things, and creating a very, very tense dynamic. So I ask our own people to look at it in that broad sense. I ask, in Orisha worship, it's about what? 3 principles that we go by. Health, peace, welfare, or prosperity, whichever word you choose. Right? Those are our 3 principles that we follow. And that does not mean applicable only to yourself, your family, or to your ethnic or racial community. Orisha, those 3 principles in Orisha worship are defined as the world, entire humanity. It's about safeguarding and creating and preserving and sharing those equal 3 principles equally with humanity. Humanity. It's not about a particular group of people. We've got to want and share the same 3 principles with everyone else, whether they're a part of our community or not. We need to, and we do that in our practice every time we do a consultation or reading and stuff like that, right? We're not an isolated religious system that only deals with their own people. We got people in and out from all walks of life, right? We're actually practicing it. We're just losing that awareness, that consciousness of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And we're further deviating from it. But the retentions and actual practices are still there. They're still there. Okay, so why are we losing that awareness and that value, what it's worth? It's an incredible value. Why are we giving that away? Why are we letting that go? Doesn't make any sense. We got to get back to understanding that, thinking that, rationalizing that, you know? And understanding and honoring its value. Not tossing it out the door or allowing it to slip away. No. That's not Lukumi. That's not Lukumi. Alright? Now that we've been doing this program for about 62 hours straight, non-stop without my tea and coffee.
Thank you for letting me suck your brain dry. I'm gonna have to call this, this is gonna be the 20th anniversary. I'm gonna have to think of a really clever name, because, you know, as I'm sitting here listening to you and we're having a conversation, we're going back and forth, or you're like going on your, you know, your little Egun trips. We're really sitting with the elders. Seriously, y'all. And we're gonna have to do this more often. I like this format because I like looking at my elder and, you know, his facial expressions and everything. We're gonna have to share this more often, and we're gonna have to get Ia Carmen on video as well, because we don't have a lot of time. Elders are not going anywhere anytime soon. However, they are not going to be here forever. So we need to take advantage. We need to study our elders, their expressions, their face, hear their voices, and listen to what they have to say, because this is the old way. What me and Oba are doing right now and sharing with you, this is what his elders did. They would sit at ultras, they would speak all night and do their thing. This is what we do. This is what I'm sharing with you, what me and Oba do to the public, actually, because we have a lot of people can't hang. But we need to do this more often. So I'm going to have to, this is the 20th anniversary show, reminiscing upon the timeline. However, it's so much more deeper than that. A lot of things that were really important that needed to be said, to be expressed to the people, to the family. You needed to see us tonight. So I'm glad that I was able to share this time with you. And that's basically about it. We will be back, and we will be doing this format once again. I actually like this in many, many different ways. So I'm not going to say...
Like a reality show.
It totally is like a reality show. The Lukumi reality show. But
you trapped me into a reality show.
Indeed, I totally bamboozled Oba. I like bamboozling him and getting him to talk and, do his things. We're going to have to do this again, but I thank you, family, for hanging out with me and Oba Ernesto Pichardo, reminiscing upon the timeline of CLBA, and also giving tidbits of information that you may not have known. Take it all in. What I do is I listen, and then I go to sleep with Oba in my ears so I can take it into my spirit, this knowing. We have a lot of work to do, family. We have a legacy that we have to pass on, not only to ourselves, but to future generations on many different levels. It's not just about us. As Oba said, it's about humanity. So we will do this again. I send you so much love, family. And until the next time, make sure that you come hang out with us on Facebook. And, you can keep yourself in the loop. We will be on BTR next week to listen to the recording of the actual case itself, a piece of it anyway, with the judges. So you don't want to miss that. But until next time, family, I love you all. Thank you, Oba.
You're welcome. Blessings, everyone.